This is the TKell Knives Guardian, a dedicated self-defense knife by TKell and TKell Knives, his company. And this one was sent to me by Mr. Kell himself. He even etched my Knife Junkie logo on there, which I'm very, very grateful for. I just had a conversation with TKell. It's going to be on the podcast. Who knows, by the time you're watching this, you may have already seen or heard the podcast, but if you haven't, he's a great guy, a very funny guy, and but coming from a pretty serious place as a former Marine, and he's a man whose company really took off during the pandemic. He really leveraged that crappy situation and turned it into a business opportunity, and man alive, he did an awesome job. So of all of his knives, this was the very first one that caught my eye, and he has a number of models now and a number of collaborations, one of which is with the great Steve Tirani. Those of you who've been into tactical knives a while might recognize that name. But anyway, this one is like his others. This is a high carbon steel, and I can't remember which one it is. I'm sorry. I think it's 52-100, the one that's the ball bearing steel from aerospace. I think, don't quote me on that now, but I do know it's covered in nickel boron, which all of his knives are covered in nickel boron, and it's like a solid lubricant almost. It's a coating that not only helps the high carbon steel from rusting, keeps it from rusting, but even more than that, it makes the blade really slick. So it just like slips into whatever you're trying to slip it into. And as you can see, probably by the shallowness of these bevels, this is not a slicer. This is not a arm hair shaver, to put it the way he puts it. And it's not for slicing and dicing. And it is for puncturing and gouging and tearing and doing bad things to bad people. It's a get off me tool, and man, it is very effective. And the thing that, or I should say, I would imagine it is very effective because it is extremely sharp, even though it's coming to the edge at a very obtuse angle. It's pretty nasty. And of course, you've already seen at this point that it's triple-edged Wharncliffe, something I could not resist. And now I'm eyeing up a lot of his other knives. He just did a collaboration with a gentleman from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, Imri Morgenstern, which incidentally means morning star, which is beautiful. But anyway, he's a top tier, combat vet, they're of their highest order over there in Israel, and they designed a really cool knife called the Sapper, which was sold out immediately, and I want to get my hands on one of those at some point. But anyway, he's done a number of collaborations: Steve Tirani, Imri, Morgenstern, Frogman Tactical, but mostly he works on his solo designs, and they're beautiful, and they're all bent towards combat and self-defense. And many of them are self-defensive because they're smaller and meant for daily carry. And one thing I really love about this knife is that handle is nice and small. On a self-defense knife, a self-defense knife that's a fixed blade that you're going to have on you all the time, a short blade or a short handle works best for me. Fits in the hand perfectly, and still is small enough. I have a bunch of them that fit that profile, but small enough to carry in the waistband and not have it poke your ribs or poke your too much into your spare tire. This is the first knife in a while that I'm carrying Scout, and I carry it on the front. Great knife for that kind of carry, and a lot of that has to do with the length of the handle. And Tim, in our interview, talks a bit about that too, how he likes smaller handled EDC fixed blades because you tend to carry them more. They're less obtrusive, they're more balanced, oftentimes with the smaller blade, and you can still get a full finger grip, and then, or full hand grip, 4-finger grip. And then with the really nice milling in this is the Black Hawk G10. That purple and black is so beautiful to me. He's got a bunch of different G10 handles that you can choose from, solid and layered like this. But what I was getting at is with these grooves carved into the smaller handles, it just adds to the grip, and the grip is awesome. This is 52100, I believe, high carbon steel with that nickel boron. Love that. And then just wickedly sharp, but different kind of sharp than the thin, slicey sharp that we've all been talking about for since the super hardcore sharpened pry bar kind of went out of style. But this, speaking of pry bar, he was telling me a story, Tim was telling me a story about how he pried a fence, not a fence post, but a piece of wood on his fence that was buckling out, and he pried it back in with this, and that is definitely something this would do very well, because it's 3/16 and it's these bevels are so short that it's full thickness most of the blade. I realize this one in particular is not for everyone because of that, but most of all of his other knives have bevels that we all understand a little bit better. High, thin bevels, mostly flat ground, I believe, and slicey and sharp, whereas this is gashy, thrusty kind of sharp. That makes sense. So he has a number of different knives that he offers this sentry grip on, and I just had this on here and I took it off for the purpose of this video here, but let's see, I left these screws pretty loose. I'll show you how this works. This is pretty cool. A number of his knives have integral karambit rings, or I'll just call them handle rings at the end. And for the ones that don't have it, if you like that option, you can buy a sentry handle to fit your knife. And the cool thing about this is you don't have to use it like a karambit. You don't even have to have karambit training to make this effective in terms of giving you more handle, especially if your hands are large. That might come in handy. Get that in there. And you can flip it around and do all those karambit manipulations and stuff like that, but really, I'm not so sure how useful that is unless you're highly trained. But the ring is good for retention, keeping it in your hand while you're, fighting with it or defending your life with it. But even if you don't use the ring, I'm hot and cold with rings. Ever since I spoke with Ed Calderon and he talked about doing that organic medium testing with karambits, and how the rings oftentimes will injure people's fingers if the fit isn't perfect. Speaking of which, well, this fit is perfect. I'm just kind of not getting it. Come on now. Okay, there we go. Do we go? All right, well, you get the idea. I'm not going to fuss too much with that. But look, you have an even larger grip with the ring on there. The ring also has a tab at the end. This is one piece of G10 that fits over the handle. You get two, but I love the color of this black handle so much that I just, this black and purple, that I only use one half of it. But as you can see, it sort of cantilevers over the end, and you get that super tough G10 ring at the very end like that. And then you have a little nubbin there, and that nubbin I think is for arresting motion if you're flipping it around, but also it can be used as a pain compliance device there. But what I like it for really is I like to hold the knife like this. If you want to hold it in a saber grip, you have all this extra space here. It's like an enlarged pommel. Now this is driving me nuts. I gotta put that in there. Oh, I see what I was doing. Sometimes it's hard to do stuff on camera. Nope. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. This never happens to me. I swear, baby. This never happens. Okay, so once it is in there, it's all secure and you're good to go. All right. But I'm going to do the rest of that later. So TKell knives, T.Kell knives, I should say, and TKell. Be sure to watch the interview with him. And we go about a half hour extra on the Patreon extra interview, and he's just awesome. He's a cool guy, very funny, and he's got that sort of Marines gallows sense of humor. Oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. So depending on which way you screw it in, it's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, but I had the wrong side, and so whatever. You get the idea. But I love the way that thing looks and feels, and it carries great. Here's the sheath. He has a proprietary method for making his sheaths, and I believe he even designed the machine, and I like this little bit of jimping here for the push off. Okay, well that was long and awkward, but you get the idea with the handle and with the clip. And go to TKell Knives if you're interested in self-defense knives, if that's the kind of thing you like. Small fixed blades, they're all utility oriented or utility doubling in purpose. Not so much this one. You could definitely open up boxes with this or whatever, but I had to go for the most self-defense-y one out there. All right, thanks for watching.